So what happens when you win so big that you shatter an entire empire? I mean, for most people, that's a time for a massive celebration, right? But for one leader, it was a moment for a really profound and urgent warning. Okay, let's dive into this story of a conquest that wasn't seen as an end, but as the beginning of a huge test.
And boom, this one sentence, delivered right at the peak of their victory. It captures everything we're going to explore today. This isn't just about military history. Nope, we're going way deeper to look at what success actually means and the incredible weight of responsibility that comes right along with it.
All right, so let's set the scene. Our story kicks off in the year 22 after the Hijra. The Sasanian Persian Empire, we're talking about a civilization that went toe-to-toe with Rome for centuries, a true global superpower with this rich history of art, science, military might, the whole package. Well, it is on the verge of total collapse after a huge Muslim victory at the Battle of Nahawand. And what comes next isn't some slow, gradual decline. It's a lightning-fast push deep into the very heart of Persian territory.
Just look at this timeline. The sheer speed of it all is what's really striking. In just a single year, you've got Muslim armies going from Hamadhan in the west all the way to starting the campaign in Khorasan way out in the east. They're taking back cities, fighting these massive battles, and locking down entire territories. You can just imagine the sense of momentum they must have had.
But here's the thing. You don't conquer a vast, ancient empire that quickly with just brute force alone. It just doesn't work that way. This incredible expansion was fueled by a really effective and, a very flexible two-part strategy that they adapted to pretty much every situation they came across. So on one hand, yeah, you had these incredibly fierce, big battles where the victory was total and the spoils were just immense. But on the other hand, a lot of towns and cities kind of saw the writing on the wall and chose a different route. They worked out peace treaties, paid a tax, and in return, they got to keep their security and their property. This mix of overwhelming force and smart, practical diplomacy, that was the key. And this little story perfectly illustrates the choice a lot of local leaders had to make. This quote actually comes from the campaign in Azerbaijan. They capture a noble and they ask him straight up, peace or war? He says peace. And get this, they actually kept him on as an advisor to help them negotiate treaties with other cities in the area. Pretty smart, right? But while all this is happening on the front lines, back in the capital, Medina, the mood wasn't always pure celebration. When Caliph Umar first heard that a new front was opening up against these fierce warriors called the Daylam, his first reaction was actually to be very upset and worried. It's such a powerful human moment. It reminds you of the high stakes and the anxiety of a leader who's sending his people so far from home, right into harm's way. So all of this leads us to the final act, the campaign in Khorasan. This was the absolute eastern edge of the Persian Empire. It was the last real bastion of resistance, and it's where the Persian king himself had run to make his final stand. King Yazdagird, with his back against the wall, is pretty desperate. So he doesn't just rally what's left of his own army, he sends out a call for help to his powerful neighbors, the Turks. And together, they pull together this absolutely massive coalition force to take on the Muslims at what felt like the edge of the world. The Muslim commander, a man named al-Ahnaf ibn Qays, well, he suddenly finds himself in a really tough spot. The sources describe the enemy army as a huge and alarming number of troops. They were seriously outnumbered, facing this combined Persian and Turkic army that was ready for a final epic battle. And in this incredibly tense moment, al-Ahnaf shows what an amazing leader he is. He gets in front of his men and he doesn't sugarcoat it. He acknowledges the reality, you are few and your enemies are many. But then he flips it, telling them not to be dismayed. He frames it not as a reason to be scared, but as a test of their faith, reminding them that the bigger army doesn't always win. And then, something really strange happens that changes everything. See, the Turks had this custom where 3 horsemen would ride out beating a drum, right before their army would advance. While under the cover of darkness, al-Ahnaf sneaks out and, one by one, as each drummer appears, he kills them. So when the Turks finally come out and find their 3 drummers have just vanished, their king takes it as a horrible omen. He declares that these men were killed in a place where nothing like that had ever happened before, and he orders a full retreat. Just like that, the alliance completely falls apart without a single major battle being fought. So, with the Persian-Turkic alliance shattered and Khorasan secured, the Persian Empire was, for all intents and purposes, conquered. The news of this final, very strange victory then began its long journey by letter all the way back to the capital, Medina. Just try to imagine the scene in Medina that day. The letter from the front is read out loud for the whole community to hear. The war is finally over. The victory is total. And then, Caliph Umar walks to the pulpit, a simple wooden structure called the minbar, to address the people. But what he says next is not at all what you might expect from a victorious leader. Instead of some big, rousing speech celebrating their power and their glory, he delivers this really sober, really profound warning about what their success truly means. He starts by quoting from the Quran, and right away that frames the entire speech. He's making it crystal clear that this victory wasn't their achievement. It was the fulfillment of a divine promise. He's immediately shifting the focus away from human strength and onto a much higher purpose. He gives ranks. He acknowledges that the kingdom of Persia is gone, its people scattered. But this is all just the setup. He's building towards a much, much more important point. And there it is, the absolute core of his entire message. He tells them that all of it, the land, the wealth, the power, it's not some prize to be celebrated. He calls it an inheritance. And an inheritance always comes with a condition. It's been given to them, he says, as a test to see what you will do. Now, this idea was a direct echo of what the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, had taught his companions. The lesson was that any success you have is a blessing from God that brings with it this huge responsibility of taking care of it properly. It becomes a test of your character, your sense of justice, and your humility when you're faced with great fortune. And he ends with this really stark warning. He tells them that the same principles of faith and justice that brought them this victory are the things they have to hold on to. He warns them, don't change your ways, don't become arrogant or corrupt, because the success they're enjoying could just as easily be taken away and given to someone else. And that leaves us with a really powerful question, doesn't it? In a world that so often measures success by how much wealth, power, or victory you have, this whole perspective challenges us to look a lot deeper. If every one of our own achievements is also a test, then maybe the true measure of success isn't about what we've gained, but what we actually do with it.